Hi, my name's Shannon, and today I'm here to talk to you about our guest app. So, we're a very technologically driven company, and we really like to use technology to our advantage to make things not only easier for the guests, but easier and safer for you as the property owner as well. So, what we're going to look at today with our guest app is basically three main things: how we help protect you against fraud, as well as processing security deposits to protect your property, streamlining the arrival process for guests that are arriving at your property, as well as providing your property's information at the guest fingertips to make it easy for them to find out things about your property or the nearby or surrounding areas. So, the main question, and probably the most important question I have, is how are you vetting your guests? Or are you even doing it at all? Because if you're not, you don't know if the person's name on the booking is the person who's actually staying at your property. Now, I know if you only use Airbnb, that Airbnb does have a guest verification process. But once you start booking through the whole host of other sites that are out there, which is something you really need to do to maximize your bookings and returns, not all sites will do this. So, main questions is how are you stopping credit card fraud? Now, I know you might say, oh, well, hang on a minute. I don't process credit cards. But once again, once you start using the other sites that are out there, you will need to start processing credit cards for guests. We also process security deposits, which are done on guest credit cards. So you really want to make sure that guests aren't booking with fraudulent or stolen cards. Next question is, are you getting ID off your guest to ensure that the person booking is actually the person staying? Unfortunately, this is something that is actually more common than you think. It is more common through some sites than others. I'm not going to name a particular site here that we do see a little bit more of this come through, but majority of the sites out there do not verify the guests with their ID. So the guest could start a profile on that booking site under any name they want, and they could book your property under that name. It might not be their actual name. So you really want to make sure you know who is staying in your property. And the final question is are you collecting a security deposit from your guests? Now, once again, I know if you're using Airbnb, they do have a guest insurance policy. But once again, once you start using the host of other sites that are out there, which you really need to be doing, you really need to make sure that you've got a security deposit in place. This deposit is there for two reasons. One is that if there is any excess cleaning or damages, it gives you a comeback and allows you to recoup some of the costs or all of the costs from that. And the other thing it does is it acts as a deterrent. So guests, of course, want to receive their deposit back, so they're more likely to leave your property clean and in a good condition if they've paid a security deposit. So this is how we vet your guests. When we're managing your property, we use our guest app to do a lot of our guest vetting. So every guest that stays with us must do the following three-step process through our guest app. The first one is they have to upload a copy of their ID. Now, they usually take a photo of this using their smartphone, and that loads directly into the app. They also have to upload a picture of their credit card that they use to book, and they have to agree to our terms and conditions. This then allows us to cross reference their ID and their credit card with the name on the booking to make sure that it is all the same person and it's not someone booking with someone else's credit card or a stolen credit card. So by cross-referencing the name and the details on the booking with the ID and the credit card, we can ensure that we know who is staying at your property. So that way, if all the details match up across the three fields, then the guest just proceeds with their booking, and we then allow the arrival details and key codes or door codes to be released to the guests so they can go directly to your property and check straight in. If the info on any of the fields does not match, what we then do is we do further investigation. We don't just automatically reject the guest. Basically, what we do is we'll contact the guest because there's times when it's might be the booker's partner or friend. So maybe the husband's made the booking and then the wife's used the credit card or vice versa. There's many occasions where it's a business booking. So that's the company's credit card, but they've booked for a work colleague or one of their employees to come who's working in the area. And the other one is it might just be, especially when it's a large group, might just be another party traveling within the group. So we'll contact the guest, find out if it's any of these things. And if it is, we can usually then get the right ID off the right people and make sure that it is a legitimate booking and a legitimate person staying. So if the info above can be verified, the booking proceeds, and then if not, it is then at our discretion if the guest may proceed, but often likely not. So this really helps weed out fraud and it helps weed out undesirable guests that could potentially be staying at your property and causing damages or thefts or anything like that. So by doing this, we have very, very, very low incidence of trouble with any of our guests. So talk a bit about security deposits. So we take a security deposit for all non-Airbnb bookings. The security deposit will vary depending on the size of your property. So if it's maybe a smaller apartment, it might be around the $200. For a larger house, might be around the $500 mark. And for something that's really premium and upmarket or a large luxury house, might be anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. We don't want to set it so high that we deter people from booking, but we want to set it high enough that we can recoup the costs in the case that we should need to for any reason. Now, the way we do the security deposit, it's done by processing a pre-authorization on the guest credit card 24 to 48 hours prior to them arriving. So we don't actually take the money. What we do, a pre-authorization, if you're not familiar with it, it essentially puts a hold on that money on the guest credit card. And then once the guest is checked out, that will then be released back to the guest approximately 48 hours after checkout, provided the property, of course, is left clean and damage-free. Now, the security deposit can be taken in part, or if there is excess cleaning or damages, or we could take the whole thing. For example, there might just be a small breakage. Let's say they break a bedside lamp. It might only be worth $50 to replace, but we might have taken a $200 security deposit. So we'll just take $200 out of that pre-authorization, and that then gets passed on to you in your statement, and the guest gets the 150 remaining amount back. So let's move on to streamlining the arrival process. We use the guest app to manage the whole arrival process for the guests. So this is a picture of an actual app that you see on the side here. And basically guests use this app to check in electronically. Once the vetting process is completed that we just spoke about, it successfully auto triggers the arrival info to be released to the guest. Details are then sent to the guest via SMS or email 48 hours prior to check-in. And basically they will not receive the key codes or check-in info if the vetting process is not complete. So we have to make sure that everything that we spoke about earlier in the vetting is all good to go. And once it is, that'll trigger the release of this information to them. That way, if there's any issues or any problems, we can stop the guest getting access to your property. It's also a method of contactless check-in, so it's COVID safe. It is actually something we implemented during COVID. It's basically like a hotel check-in, but in app form. So instead of going to the front desk of a hotel and handing over your ID and credit card, we just do it all through an app. It's a pretty automated process, but there is obviously human oversight with it all. And it helps prevent credit card fraud, as we spoke about earlier. And the security deposits also, we find it a good deterrent for bad behaviour. Guests obviously want their deposit back, so they're more likely to look after your property if they know that they're going to lose their deposit if they don't. And as well as check-in instructions, we also put check-out instructions in there too. So that way guests know what's expected of them in terms of the state they need to leave the property in when they go, in terms of cleanliness, taking out rubbish, washing dishes, anything like that. Now, another great use of this app is it works as a digital compendium and guidebook. Where you used to have the traditional folder in your house that might have a rundown of different things in the house or instructions, this can now all be done digitally through this app. So you can have a full guidebook of the house, instructions for anything that guests need. For example, like if there's any kitchen appliances that may be tricky to use, pools or spas where you need some instructions for the operation. Now, with these instructions, rather than just be text-based, we can include pictures. We can also include videos. So if you have something that's maybe a bit tricky or long-winded to explain, you can just shoot a short video with your smartphone and we can upload that into the instructions for the guest to see. It also includes stuff like all their Wi-Fi codes, house rules. If you're a pet-friendly property, it can have specific pet rules or information about pets, as well as emergency info and who to contact in case of an emergency. Another great thing we can include in there are local recommendations. So if you've got favourite restaurants or cafes that you can recommend, local attractions in the area, and other natural things like what are the best beaches to go to, are there good bushwalks or rainforest walks in the area, or other natural things the guests can see? So the guests really appreciate this, and it gives them a bit of local knowledge and makes their holiday experience a bit more enjoyable. And they might be able to see some stuff that's not in all the normal tourist brochures. Especially if you're a local in the area, you might have some great little inside tips that you're happy to pass on to your guests. Now, one thing I didn't mention earlier, but I want to bring your attention to it now, is a great little bonus with the app is you can actually do some upsells. So, kind of things we often do with the upsells for pet friendly properties, we can charge a pet fee per pet. We can also allow early check in or late checkout if it's going to work with the bookings before or after their booking. And we can charge a fee for that. And so it allows you to make a little bit extra on your booking over and above what you otherwise would. If you have a property where there might be a king bed that converts to two single beds or vice versa, you could say, okay, property comes standard as a king, but if you want it converted prior to your stay, we can do that, but there's a charge for it. And if they select it there, we can actually link that through all our software. So that'll go filter all the way through down to the cleaners, and the cleaners will know that how the beds need to be set up. Some owners also like to provide the option of welcome hampers, a bottle of champagne on arrival. We can allow the guest to choose if they want that or not and have a cost. So if they have a special occasion, they're taking, for example, someone away for an anniversary, they might like to make it a bit special and include a nice welcome hamper or bottle of champagne on arrival. And that's something that we can allow through the app, and you can choose what we want to charge for that. So I hope that's given you a good rundown on what we can do with our guest app. So it serves a number of purposes, right from making your property more secure to ensure that we're properly vetting guests and cross-referencing their information to make sure it's not a fraudulent booking and we know who's actually staying, right through to making the arrival process easy for the guests, and also allowing the guests to have all the information about your property and things to see and do in the local area all at their fingertips.
So if you're looking at all this thinking, wow, that's a much better way to do things, you'd definitely be right. So we'd love to help you get started with all this today. Give us a call on 02 566 49898. Shoot us an email to info@strmarketingco.com.au. Jump on our website if you're not already, strmarketingco.com.au for a bit more information, as well as see some of the other things that we can do for your property to help streamline your operations and bring you in more revenue. So that's it from me today. I hope to be talking to you soon.